This is Locked On Bets, the daily betting show that means business from the Locked On Podcast Network. Hosted by Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers, they're dropping fearless picks with an inside edge to put money in your pocket. If there's action, they've got the lock. This is where smart bets start. It's Locked On Bets.
Welcome to the Monday edition of Locked On Bets. Kevin Rogers and Lee Sterling of Paramount Sports with you. And as always, we appreciate you making Locked On Bets your first listen of the day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network today. And we have a lot going on. Some things happened this weekend, I guess, right? We found out about the college football playoffs. So a little bit of a storyline there. We're going to talk about that. Also, recap the weekend, a winning weekend here on the show. So that's always a positive. And good Monday night game tonight in L.A., Eagles and the Chargers. We're going to talk about that with a couple picks, NBA, NHL as well. So, Lee, let's get things going with tonight's Hidden Gem.
To find a diamond in the rough, you need to dig a little deeper for those hidden gems.
Big game tonight at SoFi Stadium, Eagles and the Chargers. And Philadelphia still atop the NFC East. They're in good shape. Chargers behind the Broncos in the AFC West, but L.A. Still looking good for a playoff spot, but both teams needing a win tonight. We'll get to the side coming up a little bit later on. But now, Lee, for a prop, Oronde Gadsden Jr. We know his dad, who was a very good receiver with the Dolphins, and Oronde, a great season so far with Justin Herbert. What do you like with him tonight in his reception prop?
Okay, so a couple things I think play into me going with the Oronde Gadsden player prop. First of all, I think that the Chargers receivers are getting healthy. You know, guys like Ladd McConkey, they had a few different receivers that have been out for a couple weeks here and there. So they're finally healthy. He's good. He's really good. And I don't know if he was a total steal, but at least drafted where he should be or maybe a little bit higher. So love that aspect of it. But here's the problem. On top of these receivers coming back, let's say Herbert goes out hurt in this game. You don't get a do-over. You don't get, oh, well, I wouldn't have picked it if they had to go with the backup quarterback. Also, I feel, well, he hasn't been great the last 3 games. I think he's 1, 2, and 3 receptions. So he's leveled off a little bit. The other side is the Eagles have a situation. I think their linebackers are really good in coverage, and their safety, their strong safety is good also. So sometimes it's about the matchup also. So I do believe that in the times also where Philadelphia gave up more receptions to the tight end, more than 3, like against Dallas. I mean, Dallas was without CeeDee Lamb, so they had to go to Ferguson more. So you've got to factor that into it also. I don't look back like 4, 5, 6 games. Last 3 games are very important. So I think when everything comes together, it's the layers here why I like the under here. I'm going to go under 3.5 receptions here for Oronde Gadsden, -105 as my hidden gem to start off the week.
Yeah, last time he had more than 3 receptions was at Tennessee back in week 9. And yeah, you're right. He's kind of leveled off a little bit with about 80 yards receiving in his past 3 games. And yeah, if Trey Lance happens to come in for Justin Herbert, if Herbert, isn't 100%, then that may not be good news for the Chargers offense. So we'll see how it all turns out tonight. We'll have a side on that game coming up in just a little bit. So that will wrap up week 14 of the NFL. A lot of storylines from yesterday. And we'll get to the college football playoff in just a second. But I feel like every weekly we're like, oh, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to turn it around. They're going to turn it around. They're going to get on track. They're not getting on track. And the season is coming to a close very quickly. And right now the Chiefs are under 500 after losing to the Houston Texans last night.
I think they're done. I'm looking at the other teams that are in that conference, and it's almost an impossibility. So they won a lot of close games last year. This year they're losing the close games. And obviously, you draft that far back and you don't hit on, a large percentage of your draft picks and do really well in free agency, you're going to have trouble. And they've also had injuries on top of that to their offensive line. So give Houston credit. Their defense is legit. I think they're top 2, top 3, maybe the best in the NFL. I would not want to face them. They're scary good. But, yeah, I think the reign, at least definitely this year, we'll see how they reload next year, probably over.
But also, too, it's funny how we talk about in the AFC year in and year out, you have the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens are three teams you got to look out for. Only one of them can make the playoffs with Buffalo right now at 9-4 because Baltimore lost to Pittsburgh yesterday. They're under 500. The Chiefs are under 500. The Dolphins have the same record as Baltimore and Kansas City, what everyone predicted before the season. Elsewhere in the AFC, speaking of the Colts, they were a team that was in control of the AFC South, maybe a team that could be the number one seed. Daniel Jones having a resurgent season, but he gets hurt, and all of a sudden now this season has just gone off the rails for Indianapolis the last few weeks. Houston's played a lot better. Jacksonville's played a lot better, and the Jags in the rain yesterday, they took care of the Colts. Now Daniel Jones is out for the season with an Achilles tear, and it just shows you how fast your season can end, even when you start 6-1.
8-2, right? So crazy. I think someone termed it a crisis, I think, on one of the shows. I think it's worse than that. So Riley Leonard's just not a good enough passer. Let's be honest. Good athlete. He's not taking you anywhere. Forget about it. And the only other quarterback they have that can play right now is Brett Rippon. And he's not good enough either. He's on the practice squad. Probably a little bit better passer than Leonard. I mean, Richardson, I think he might be done for the year. I remember I think he hurt himself, his orbital bone or something in his eye. So I don't even know if he's even going to be available the rest of the season. So I think they're done. Sad as it may seem, great start. It's over.
Now, one of the, I guess, controversial endings from a point spread standpoint was that Broncos-Raiders game on Sunday. Denver's laying 7.5. At Vegas, they were up that whole game, and Pete Carroll decides somehow, let's kick a field goal at the end of the game, trailing by 10 to cut it to 7, where it means nothing. But the Raiders were 7.5-point dogs. So what did you think about how that whole thing unfolded?
I mean, it was if you're betting on Denver, which I had, it was horrific. It was painful. If you had the Raiders, it was an absolute miracle. So, I mean, like 8 or 9 things had to happen from the middle of the fourth quarter on. And any one of those plays, if they had gone against the Raiders, then it's over. So the odds, I think covering, I didn't see the odds of winning were nothing, but it was under 1%. But the odds of covering had to be like less than 2 or 3%, maybe 5% tops. But they, forget everything else. They had to play with a backup quarterback after Geno Smith goes out, and they did that. And then they end up with I don't know what the down was. They're on their own 35-yard line. They completed like a 25, 30-yard pass, and all the Denver defender needed to do was just walk back, get back in your position. They had like 6 seconds left. They're not going to be able to get up there and spike the ball, and the game's over. What does he do? He did something with either held down the receiver, moved the ball away, and they called delay a game. So they gave him a penalty on top of that, moved him further into a field goal range, stopped the clock, and Pete Carroll goes for a field goal. Last play of the game. I mean, meant nothing. If I was a coach, I would have taken the knee and walked off. But he decided to go for the field goal, and if you had Denver like I did, it was painful.
I want to ask you this question. I know that from the handicapping standpoint, obviously football, baseball, outdoor sports, you need to look at weather. But do you realize that the 3 games that had the biggest impacts of weather, Bills, Bengals, Titans, Browns, and Colts, Jags, all went over the total? That this thought of it's going to snow, it's going to rain, they're not going to score, but yet all those games were all high scoring.
Yeah. It's an overreaction because the defense, in my opinion, I don't bet under just based on weather. If it's maybe windy, really windy, that can affect 2 teams that are passing teams. But snow, the defense has a negative. They're backpedaling, especially the DBs. And you see big plays happen all the time. And a lot of times you get turnovers and you get the ball on the other team's side of the ball. So, if anything, I play overs based on weather, especially the situation like in Buffalo and Cincinnati. And then also, looking at some of these there was one other ending I thought that was crazy was the Cleveland ending. Kevin Stefanski, what is this guy doing? So there was a couple elements to that ending, and not saying that Cleveland, was going to cover. They were laying 3.5. Even if they made it to overtime, the odds were small. They would have had to have scored a touchdown and then held. Who did they play? The
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Yeah, horrible team.
Yeah.
So even if they held Tennessee, the problem was they're down 2 touchdowns. They scored touchdowns with like 4, 5, 6 minutes to go in the game. Down 14, he goes for 2. And I've heard some coaches do that. It's the wrong thing to do. I don't care what the book says. Kick the field goal and, kick the extra point. You're down 7. And then, you're down 7. If you want to go for 2, go for it at the end of the game. He decides to go for it. They don't make it. Then they score with a minute to go in the game. He ends up having to go for 2. He doesn't have Shedeur Sanders on the field at all, which was crazy. Shedeur Sanders had gotten absolutely red hot. So they're going to probably run, or it's a trick play. They have Junkins in. He gets the snap. He goes to the right, forgets to pitch it, and then throws it who knows where, not even close to the guy who's originally supposed to pitch it to. They fail it. But it was an absolute disaster. So Kevin Stefanski, bye-bye. See you later. You're a horrible coach. You're not making your team any better. To allow all those points to be scored by Tennessee. Tennessee was running right through him. So his team wasn't prepared, hasn't been prepared, doesn't win close games. Bye, Kevin.
All right. So let's look at college football now.
Yep.
And obviously, the big story with the playoff was Notre Dame getting left out and Miami getting in, which still in the end, and we'll talk about Alabama in a second. We didn't forget about them. Head-to-head means something. In all these sports, you play head-to-head, it means something. Miami beat Notre Dame. I don't care if it was week 8, week 13, week 1. They beat them. So that has to mean if those two teams are on the line, who gets in? The team that won the head-to-head matchup. And Miami did that. Notre Dame started 0-2 as well, which is something else a lot of people don't bring up. But Miami, Texas A&M, Alabama, Oklahoma, Tulane, Ole Miss, James Madison, Oregon. Those are the 4 matchups. Let's talk about Miami, Notre Dame first. Okay. What are your thoughts there? Obviously, you followed the Hurricanes for a very long time, so you're not disappointed with this result. But as far as the committee making the right move there and getting Miami in over Notre Dame for the head-to-head matchup.
Based on head-to-head, I thought Miami deserved. Is Notre Dame playing great football? Absolutely. Didn't beat anyone. Best win was USC. So for that reason, and the reason also Miami beat them head-to-head, and they were the better team. I was at that game. They clearly were the better team. I think Notre Dame scored 14, 17 points in the fourth quarter when Miami was playing a lot of prevent defense, just trying to make them use up 10, 12 plays to score and go down the field. So thought Miami deserved to be in. My problem with the committee is I don't think Alabama belonged. And I've heard the argument that you shouldn't get penalized for playing in a championship game. Well, Alabama was dreadful. They didn't cross midfield until I think sometime in the fourth quarter. They had -3 rushing yards for the game. So they were not competitive. If they lost by 7 or 10 points, I'd be like, yeah, Alabama belongs. They played a tough schedule. Had some really good wins. Also had a horrific loss. Let's not forget about Florida State. Got blown out just because it was the first game of the year. Yeah, they got better, and Notre Dame got better, but that wasn't even a close game. So Alabama, of everything, here's what I think happens. The SEC and the ESPN are in bed together. They were not moving Alabama out, no matter what. They could have lost by 35, 40 points. They were not moving them out. And so by them being in bed together, I think they didn't want to, totally wreck this playoff system. They want to keep it as close to what it's going to be, hopefully in the future for them. So what did they do? They made sure that Miami got in. Notre Dame, if they kept them out, they're an independent. They don't want the Big Ten, the ACC to break up. If the ACC breaks up, let's say you got 4 teams, you might have Miami, Duke, Virginia, and North Carolina going to the Big Ten. And then you might have Florida State, Clemson, 2 other teams, maybe Virginia Tech and someone else going to the SEC. And then you've got 2 great power conferences the Big 12 under that, and then the rest of the teams from that point going forward. So, and that wouldn't work. So that's my feeling there.
And two other points quickly.
Yep.
Indiana, Ohio State. Indiana's the 1 seed. Kirk Cignetti, he delivered, winning a Big Ten title in his second season. That Ohio State wasn't very sharp, but at the same time, you're still a top 4 seed. You still get a bye, so I think they'll still be okay in spite of that result.
Absolutely, and they didn't have much left after the Michigan win. They were peaking towards that, and obviously they wanted to win, but I don't think mentally and physically they could give close to 100%. I thought Indiana was good. They weren't great either. So if Ohio State was 100%, they hadn't played anyone a couple weeks before, I think they win that game. But hats off to Kurt Cignetti, really good coach, and Fernando Mendoza, a really good story.
And Cignetti's former team, James Madison, they get in. Tulane also gets in. I'm all for it. I know people say, well, why are they get? Because then there's no point to their seasons. There's no point to any of the group of 5 seasons if they cannot have an opportunity to get in the tournament. If James Madison gets blown out by 4 touchdowns to Oregon, so be it. But at least they have a shot and they're in. And that's what they have to do. You look at the March Madness, some of these teams that made it as far as they did that were not big names. You got to have these other teams play for a purpose. So I am happy that I understand it's a requirement, but I'm happy that these teams at least get an opportunity to get in the tournament.
I am too. Eventually, though, I'd like to see like 64 teams in Division I, and the teams like Tulane, James Madison, Memphis, these other teams move down, make that 1AA, keep the FCS, or have the FCS and these other teams form a bigger league. But I think eventually what we're headed towards is 60, 64, 68 teams playing Division I football with a 16-team playoff.
Yeah, it's we'll see how this whole thing turns out. Coming up, we still have a lot more picks to get to, NHL, NBA, and also a lock on Eagles Chargers. That is all straight ahead. You are listening to the Monday edition of Locked On Bets. Let's talk now about FanDuel as we go into Monday Night Football. That's right, big game between the Eagles and the Chargers. Also, want to remind you, the NFL Sundays, they move fast as well. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. So basically, live betting is so much fun because if you miss out right before the kickoff, you don't feel so comfortable about laying points, taking points before the game. You want to see how the game unfolds, maybe 2 minutes in, 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in, whatever your choice is. You have that opportunity at FanDuel with the live betting of Eagles Chargers coming up tonight. Great example there. Philadelphia's a short favorite. If Philadelphia gets on the board first, maybe you want to go with the Chargers or vice versa. If the Chargers, they score a touchdown in their opening drive, maybe it's time to jump on the Eagles. You have Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert tonight, and you could look at their props in game as far as yardage goes, touchdowns, as well as all the other players in the field, all the receivers out there with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Oronde Gadsden, all of them. So many choices in game with the live betting that you can do at FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. We continue Locked On Bets here on a Monday. Kevin Rogers and Lee Sterling of Paramount Sports. Now it's time, Lee, to go deep into Alberta for our second Hidden Gem.
To find a diamond in the rough, you need to dig a little deeper for those hidden gems.
What they say, Lee, they all pay the same, but this is a game that will not decide the Stanley Cup final tonight. The Sabres and the Flames, they meet in Calgary. And I've always said on the show, Lee, that I don't like the term contrarian because it sounds like you're just taking a side, just take a side. But I'm going to go with the Buffalo Sabres first period here against Calgary. The Flames coming off 2 good home wins over Minnesota and Utah. They just faced a Utah team that was playing with no rest after they won at Vancouver the night before. So the Flames took advantage and won both those games. The Sabres are continuing their road trip. They were blown out by the Flyers and then went to Winnipeg, a beat-up Winnipeg team, lost to them as well on Friday. So now they are continuing there in Western Canada and taking on Calgary. The Sabres are looking to avenge a loss to Calgary earlier this year, lost 6-2 at home. We're down 2-0 after the first, so got something to play for there. Flames, 5 straight home games. They've not allowed a goal in the first period. I think that ends tonight. I just think it's the setup. And also, if you look at the line, they're laying 110 each way. Why is Calgary laying 110 when they've been playing better? Buffalo has led once through the first period this year. And I think we had that game, too, the Buffalo-Utah earlier. I called that one. So I'm 1 for 1 on my Sabres in the first period. So we're going to go 2 for 2 this year. Let's go with the Sabres. Go with the Swords tonight against the Flames in Calgary. First period as our NHL Hidden Gem.
I'm glad it's a light game night here in all sports. It was a lot this weekend watching all these games, even college basketball. So, I'll watch the first period. I probably won't watch after that unless I have an in-game wager. But good luck. Let's knock it home. All right, Kevin?
That's all we can do. So the NHL, couple games, NBA, 3 games, and the Spurs and the Pelicans, they meet up in New Orleans. Now time for our blowout special.
Oh, boy. Last one out, turn off the lights. This one's a blowout.
Pelicans are 3-21. And the worst part about that is you have Sacramento and Indiana are playing. They've combined for 11 wins. They're not even the worst teams in the league. New Orleans is 3-21. They're hosting San Antonio tonight. Spurs a 9-point favorite in the Big Easy. Is it that easy, Lee? Let's check out what your blowout special is for tonight in the NBA.
Okay. Yeah.
So what do you got?
So my blowout here is I know Victor Wembanyama is not playing. We know that. But he hasn't been playing a whole lot this year. He's going to always get hurt. So I think they're used to playing without him. I like Devin Vassell. I think he is an absolute scoring machine, scored 28 points in the last game. De'Aaron Fox had 25 points, 9 assists, and 5 rebounds. When Wembanyama's not in there, they go up and down the court at I think, a much faster pace here. They're 8th in scoring. 118.6 points per game, also 4th in the league in 2-point percentage, 57.5. They get to the rim early and often. And they also are playing a team that's awful. I mean, dreadful. And you hit on it. New Orleans, you look at their top 8 guys, 3 are rookies, and they're not even good. There is no top-end players on this team. Sadiq Bey, Trey Murphy, Jordan Poole's still out. Zion Williamson never plays. Almost sure he's not playing again tonight. They're 26 in scoring. They allow 122.6 points per game. That's 29th in the league. They only make 51% of their 2-pointers, which is 29th. And even 3-pointers, they're 21st in the league here. They're awful. Don't fall for the trap here. I think we have San Antonio lays one on him here. Blowout special, San Antonio Spurs over the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah, and the Spurs, they're headed to face the Lakers coming up Wednesday in the NBA Cup. So hope they don't have a letdown here after they just lost at Cleveland. But the Spurs have been playing very well, and Wembanyama's still out. But Spurs definitely trying to turn things around now after struggling for a few seasons. So we'll see how that turns out tonight. Coming up, we have the Monday night lock, the game of the night, just because college basketball is so limited. NHL isn't great. NBA only has 3 games. So we're going to look at the Eagles-Chargers side. That is straight ahead. You are listening to Locked On Bets. Locked On Bets continues here on a Monday. Kevin Rogers and Lee Sterling of Paramount Sports. So let's now get to our lock of the day between the Eagles and the Chargers.
Open it, open it, open it. Lee has the key to the lock of the day.
Philadelphia, short favorite here on the road, and both the Eagles and Chargers at 8-4. Big one tonight at SoFi. Lee, what do you like?
All right, so a couple things here. If you look just based on numbers, might be a tough game to handicap. Actually, the first time that they've met since 2021, these teams, where actually LA won that game 24-21 in Philadelphia. This game is in LA, probably more Philadelphia fans, or at least half and half. So it's not like it's a home game here. Worried about if you're taking the Chargers, the health of Justin Herbert. So when you got a quarterback that's not 100%, I usually shy away. People are saying, well, we haven't heard about the tush push lately. Well, it hasn't come into play much because Philadelphia hasn't been very good of late. They've only scored 15.5 points on average over the last 4 weeks. I think they mentally want to show that game against Chicago was a fluke. They were run all over. So I think they're going to come to play, and I think that the Chargers are going to be, one-dimensional because they don't have a running game. They lost their best 2 tackles for the season. They're just trying to get by. You look at the Pro Football Focus ratings on all their linemen, they're down at the bottom, very bottom 10, almost all 5 of them here. So I just think even though the Chargers sacked Geno Smith 5 times and held the Raiders in their last game to just 12 first downs, it's going to be a little bit different here. I think Philadelphia, extra time to prepare here. You back a good team against the wall, they're going to come out fighting. I don't like the fact that the line is 2. Let's say they win by 2 or 1, you get a loss or a push. It's like minus 130 money line, 135 some other places. So I think Philly's going to be the winner. For that reason, I'm going to go Philadelphia Phillies money line minus 130 to 135. It's going to be a level 2 lock. Start off the week.
All right, so we'll see if the Eagles can take care of business coming up tonight, headed out west. And yeah, they'll have a lot of fans out there at that game against the Chargers. So, Lee, we are a week into December. So what's going on with Paramount Sports now that the college football playoff is set? You have Army-Navy coming up this week, but also all the bowl games have been announced. So what's going on with Paramount Sports now before the end of 2025?
Well, full disclosure, we finally lost in a day. That's it. We lost Sunday, went 0-3. So it happens. We had won, I think, 9 or 10 straight days in college football and the NFL. For our clients, sometimes just doesn't go your way, bad decisions, but still would won 9 or 10 straight days before that in football. We've been winning big in hockey, had a huge basketball run. I think we're something like 21-5-1 over the last 27 games. So that's been great. Won in the UFC, went 4-3, won there. And, it's been a fun run. Double down December. Every single game from now all the way through the end of the month, I just lowered it. Use coupon code SAVE100, just $397 every single game through the end of the month. So you'll get this coming weekend in the NFL, 2 more weekends in the NFL. You're going to get 2 weekends of college football playoffs. And coming up next couple days, we'll start discussing those games and then also the bowl games. There's over 30, I think there's 31, 32 games for the end of the month. So you want to hop on board, have some fun, hopefully make some money. Use coupon code SAVE100, ParamountSports.com. Double down December.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Locked On Bets. Also, the podcast version you can find on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Just type in Locked On Bets, and you'll find us there. For Lee Sterling, I am Kevin Rogers, and we will talk to you again coming up on Tuesday for another edition of Locked On Bets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.